Now, if you've been following me for some time, whether it's through this podcast or through social media or you're on my email list, one of the things I talk about often is relationship fundraising. But what exactly is relationship fundraising? And why does it work so well when it comes to securing gifts for your organization? Well, that is our topic in this episode. Let's huddle up. Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fun Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. Before we get started, I want to thank all of you who have been now consuming this podcast via Apple and Spotify. Also, want to thank all of you who have been watching this podcast via YouTube. If you would like the convenience of hearing this podcast either on your morning commute or on your morning walk, feel free to subscribe to one of the platforms below, Apple or Spotify, and catch the podcast there at your own convenience. Now, relationship fundraising. What is relationship fundraising? Where did this all come from? Well, throughout my career in the nonprofit space, one of the things that was very, very important to me when I stepped into fundraising, which was in 1998, starting my nonprofit career in 1987. But in 1998, that was the first job that I had when I became an executive director of a small nonprofit to actually engage in fundraising. And and so I knew immediately that one of the things I had to do was engage in what I now call relationship fundraising. Relationship fundraising is exactly what it sounds like, utilizing relationships to build and make a case for why people who have capacity should support your organization by making a major gift. So when we think about relationship fundraising, yes, major gifts are the outcome of relationship fundraising. So major gifts are the outcome, relationship fundraising is the process. Okay? That's important to know. So many organizations sort of lean into this major gifts moniker, if you will. That's the outcome. That's the outcome. Yeah, you want major gifts, but the only way you're going to get major gifts is through relationship fundraising. Now, many years ago, I read this book, going back to 1998 again, by a gentleman by the name of Stanley Weinstein. He wrote the book, The Complete Guide to Fundraising Management. Now, I'm paraphrasing here, but he describes successful fundraising this way: it's the right person asking the right prospect to support the right project for the right amount at the right time and in the right way. 6 rights altogether. Now, some of you may be scrambling to get a pen and a piece of paper to write this down, or you can just re-listen to this part of the podcast, but I wouldn't put too much emphasis on trying to memorize those 6 rights. Because when you think about it, we innately vet things that we're leaning into as it relates to significant decisions. So all I'm doing is taking that vetting process that we use when we're buying a car or actually getting into a long-term relationship or buying a home, right? We're very careful. We want to make sure the timing's right. We want to make sure that the price is right. We want to make sure the person is right. All I'm doing is now transferring that process into relationship fundraising. So those 6 rights really do matter. Relationship fundraising is about building trusting relationships with individuals where there is a link to your organization, interest in your mission, and the ability to give at a major gift level. Now, you may be saying, what is a major gift level? That is up for you to determine as an organization. But I will tell you this: if you don't know or you don't have it clearly defined at what a major gift is, that's the minimum amount that a donor can give to be considered a major donor, then I urge you to determine what that number is. And I'm going to suggest that minimally you start with $1,000 or more. And the reason why you want this clearly defined is because it is going to shape your work. It is going to shape who you spend time building these relationships with so that the return on your investment of that time is fruitful. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to dismiss donors who don't have the capacity to give it $1,000 or more. You're just going to treat them and approach them a little differently. Okay. Your objective as it relates to relationship fundraising is to make sure that you're spending time with people who have capacity so that when you reach the point of soliciting that gift, then it is certainly worth the time that you're spending. And I am not saying in any way, shape, or form that you're wasting time spending it with donors who don't have the capacity. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying using your time wisely is the focus here. And let's face it, you're a leader of a small nonprofit organization. Your time is limited. Maximize that time to generate the revenue that you need so that you can grow. Now, it's important to note that individuals actually drive philanthropy. And repeat that. Individuals actually drive philanthropy. Now, I'm emphasizing this because sometimes we think that we should be spending time working with corporations or foundations or the federal government to get, dollars for your organization. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the data, you will understand why this is so important. Now, according to Giving USA, in 2023, which is the most complete year that we know of as of this podcast. Okay, so Giving USA releases its data for the prior year in June. So we will see 2024's data on June 15th of this year. So right now, I'm talking about 2023's data. When you take a look at that, 70%, actually more than 70% of all giving, when you include bequests, comes from individuals, not foundations, not corporations, but actual people. And respectively, we're talking about 68%, 69% of that giving is coming as straight gifts from individuals, and then 8% is coming from bequest. So bequest is a small number in comparison. So I want you to think about that. Over 70%, actually it's over 75% of all giving is coming from individuals. This is why relationship fundraising is so important. Now, you may be asking yourself, are all those major gifts? No, they're not. They're not. Here's the rule of thumb that you should be thinking about when it comes to your individual giving plan. This is an old rule that you may have heard of before. It's the 80-20 rule. Okay. When you're looking at the 100% of your gifts that are coming from individual giving, 20% of those gifts are coming from 80% of your donor base. And 80% of your gifts are coming from 20% of your donor base. So 20% of your donor base are those major donors, those individuals that can give $1,000 or more. 20% of what you're getting is coming from 80% of your donor base. Now, your job is to convert those small and what I call transactional givers. These are donors that are coming to you because they're responding to an email. They're responding to a direct mail piece that they've received in the mail. They're responding to an online solicitation, or they were just going to your website and deciding to give. Very, very transactional. Very, very transactional, right? It's without the benefit of a relationship. You heard the last episode, I talk about that a lot. Your objective here is to convert as many of those transactional givers into relational donors. This is where link, interest, and ability, emphasis on ability, comes into play. Now, if they're already giving to you, the link is there. The interest is there. They wouldn't be giving to your organization if they weren't interested in your mission. Your job is to develop that interest to the point that they're ready to make a gift at a more significant level. Now, are all of your small gift donors people who have capacity to make major gifts? No, they are not. Your job is to learn as much as you can about your donor base to see where there may be capacity. This is where wealth screening comes in. I cannot emphasize enough the importance of wealth screening. This is where you take a look at your donor database and you learn from wealth screening who among them has significant capacity. So I encourage you, it is not something that you want to leave out of your plan. It often is the thing that gets omitted or the thing that gets overlooked. Oh, we can figure it out. Oh, we know who among our donor base has capacity. I guarantee you, you do not. You will be absolutely surprised to learn how many people in your donor database have significant capacity. So if you want to know that, you want to know how to convert those transactional givers into major donors through relationship fundraising, do wealth screening, and then you can begin the process of developing those relationships. Talked about that in the last episode too, in terms of getting that first visit. But you want to know who you're trying to get those first visits with, who you should be spending your time with. The only way to determine that and confirm it is through wealth screening. Now, as I mentioned, just because you have donors who are giving in a small way, $50, $100, maybe $200, $500, just because they're giving in a small way doesn't mean that because their gifts are small, that their bank accounts are small. That's why you do the wealth screening. So I want to share with you my top 5 reasons. These are Mark the Fund Coach's top 5 reasons why donors give big to an organization. Number 5, it's because of the legacy and reputation of the organization. Now, many well-known organizations, many of them out there, the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Ivy League institutions, a lot of the other higher ed institutions, large hospitals, and so forth, They have that legacy and reputation. They're well known. And so that legacy and reputation really is about trust, right? This organization has done good work. Now, you don't have to be one of those big nonprofits to have that legacy and reputation. That legacy and reputation could be coming to, could be how your organization is described in the small sphere in which you operate, your community, your state, your region. What is your legacy and reputation? That's number 5. Number 4 is because of the tax break, right? The tax deduction. Now, many of you may think that the tax deduction is a primary reason why people give to tax exempt organizations. It's not. It's not. And it never has been. So in the United States, the tax laws changed in 2017, and many nonprofit organizations were in a panic. Oh my gosh, because of this change in the tax code, rich people will not be as incentivized to give to organizations because the standard deduction will increase, and so they won't be able to itemize. And it really was more concern was about the average donor, because before then you could itemize those gifts on your taxes, which would allow you to get that tax deduction. Now, based on whether you are an individual or a couple, the amount of the standard deduction is what will determine whether or not you can itemize. If you are contributing more than that standard deduction, then yeah, you can itemize. Meaning if you're contributing that to nonprofit organizations, or you can write that off. So everybody thought this was going to be the end of fundraising. Guess what? Didn't have an impact at all on fundraising. Why? Because the tax deduction is not that important. It's on the list, right? Because it does, for some people who are extraordinarily wealthy, it's important, but it's only number 4 in the top 5. Number 3 is because of the personal connection that your donor has to your organization. They were either a user of your services, they may be an alum, they may be a parent, they may be a grandparent, they may be somebody who's a former staff person. There's a connection, a personal connection to your organization, and that is a reason why they give. Number 2, it feels good. Think about that. Doesn't it feel good when you are giving? And I'm not just talking about giving money now. It feels good to give. Around the holidays or someone's birthday. Think about the time and the thought that you put into making sure that the receiver of that gift experiences joy. And that in turn brings you joy. And so that's why it's ranked so high at number 2, because it absolutely feels amazing to make that gift. You feel like you're making a difference in the lives of people. You feel like you're helping the organization and their staff to be able to deliver those services. It feels good. It just feels good. But the number one reason why people give and give big to nonprofit organizations is very simple. They were asked. It's that simple. That's why this relationship fundraising process is so important. The process of building strong relationships, getting to know the donor, making the case, making the ask, and closing the deal. That is the process. So if you're spending a lot of time focusing on things like fundraising events, grants, uh, direct mail, email solicitation, online solicitation, and you're only focusing on that, I'm not suggesting that you don't do that. In fact, that is part of a robust and well rounded strategy for fundraising. If you include those things, if you're only doing those things, you're engaged in what I call lopsided fundraising. It's when you take advantage of the donors who come into your organization through the ways I just mentioned to then take the next step to convert those transactional givers into relational donors by simply picking up the phone and saying thank you. I'd love to meet with you. Love to tell you more about the great things that we're doing. So if you're just doing those things, you're leaving money on the table. You really, really are. You're leaving money on the table because I guarantee you, if you have a fairly sizable donor base, maybe you've got a couple of thousand people who are on your email list, and maybe 75% of them have been giving and continue to give when you solicit them in this transactional way. You're leaving money on the table because if you're not taking the time to understand who your donors are and the capacity they have, you're leaving thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on the table. And that money can make a huge difference in your organization. That money is what can change, impact, transform the lives of the people that you serve. That has got to be at the top of your mind as to why leaning into relationship fundraising is so important. I cannot express that enough. So, anything you take away from this episode is that you are potentially preventing the people that you serve from getting better services from you, being able to serve more people, expanding your staff to have a greater impact on the people that you serve. That's what it's all about. And there are people out there who are waiting to get to know you if you take the first step. I hope this was helpful to you. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for watching. And as always, this fundraising thing, it's not just about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. Thanks. And we'll see you next time.